All right. Welcome in, everyone. The Miami Hurricanes do it again. Somehow, some way, they find a way to win this year's Fiesta Bowl semifinal game against the Ole Miss Rebels. 31-27, your final score here tonight. I'm your host, Nathan Johnson, alongside new co-host and betting expert for Break the Huddle, Rooster's Cocky Picks. Rooster, what a game we had this evening. And man, this game just went back and forth the whole night. You said it yourself. Seemed kind of like a copy and paste game from the Ole Miss Georgia game last week in the quarterfinals. I want to get your quick thoughts, a quick reaction on this game before we get into the stat lines.
Well, my first draw from this game is it felt like Miami was just dominating the entire first half. And Ole Miss's offense in the first half was essentially two plays: the 75-yard touchdown run and then the 15-yard passer roughing the passer that put them into field goal range. Outside of that, Ole Miss's offense really didn't do much of anything in the first half. But Miami just kept letting them hang in there. And I don't care who it is, nobody is stopping the Ole Miss offense the entire game. Before tonight, Ole Miss has only lost this year. They still scored 35 points in it. And then on the other hand, Ole Miss's defense could not stop the run at all. Mark Fletcher was getting 5, 10, 15 yards of carry. You saw that the line, one drive, one possession, Mark Fletcher got pushed by the lineman for an extra 15 yards. I mean, Ole Miss really didn't have an answer for anything outside of a missed field goal that Miami had and a bad interception that Carson Beck had down there in field goal range. But I mean, Miami had a lot of opportunities where they were in field goal range and they just kind of had a penalty or two that dropped them out. And this would have been a real heartbreaker if Miami ended up losing this game. And another hot take that I had after sitting here watching this game, if Georgia still had Carson Beck, Georgia's in the national championship right now. I just think that's as simple as that. But let me get your thought. Let me hear your thoughts, Nate.
Yeah. All right. We're here. Yeah. I think the biggest takeaway for me was the time of possession. I mean, here's a team that held the ball for 41 minutes. 41 minutes out of 60 minutes, Miami held onto the ball. And here they stand at the end of the game. They win by 4. I can't believe that Miami didn't dominate more. Give credit for Ole Miss staying in this one. You know, we look back and we talk about the drops that Miami had in the secondary, had at least 3 or 4 opportunities to have impactful plays with interceptions. 2 of them probably could have been a pick six. So there were times where Miami could have, put the dagger in this one early on. Ole Miss just found a way to stay in it and give credit to Chambliss, give credit to the Ole Miss defense. They played their hearts out. This was a tough physical game for both teams. And listen, I got to give the ultimate praise to quarterback Carson Beck. I have been so hard on him over the season. The first half of the season didn't look like an MVP quarterback, but man, has he come alive in this playoff run, specifically starting last game against Ohio State. And then what does he do tonight? He steps up when it matters most. His completion rate wasn't the best, but he has 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. Could have been costly in the long run. It wasn't. And then what happens? In the final 30 seconds, he runs it in. He stays in a clean pocket, steps up when he needs to, rolls out left, and runs it in clean as day. And they end up winning this football game. I thought Mark Fletcher played really well. I thought Ole Miss did a great job of containing Malachi Toney as much as they could. I thought Carson Beck missed a few deep throws down the field that probably could have resulted in big time touchdowns. He had one wide open. That was a great touchdown throw to Keelan Marion. Keelan Marion stepped up in this one. We talked about him early on in this season. He ends up being the leading receiver tonight. 7 receptions, 114 yards, and 1 touchdown. So props to him too. Ole Miss has got to be devastated, man. Got to be devastated. After all the mistakes that they made in the first half, they go into the locker room down by 4. They end up losing this one by 4. I got to ask you, Rooster, what went wrong for Ole Miss?
Well, in the first half, they just couldn't get anything going at all. I mean, outside of even after Keywan Lacey's touchdown run, there was what 5 minutes left in the second quarter, I believe, and Ole Miss had only ran 8 plays. And you heard Kirk talk about it on air on the broadcast. Ole Miss was expecting to run 80 to 90 plays in this game, and they had 8 total plays in the first 20 minutes of the game. And then on the other hand, I mentioned earlier they couldn't stop the run. The main concern of Ole Miss all season long was the run defense. Even in the Georgia game, Georgia got away from the run, but Georgia was getting rushing yards at will all night long, and Georgia just refused to run the ball. In this game, Miami stuck to the run. Mark Fletcher, he just a unit. He literally looked like Derrick Henry out there on the field tonight, and I don't believe that's an exaggeration with how he was running in this game. So I think the two major things that Ole Miss is going to look back on is the rush defense that they had that really couldn't stop anybody. I know they lost a lot of NFL talent this past year at the NFL draft on the defensive line, and it's hard to replace that talent up front. They were able to get some gap fills in the transfer portal this offseason, but it's hard to replace that kind of production on the defensive line. And it's hard to overcome an offense that can't move the ball at all for 30 minutes of the game.
Yeah, I agree completely, Rooster. I want to ask you this too. I there was a couple of plays tonight with potential targeting. You know,
Yeah.
Miami gets called for targeting. Ole Miss had a hit that I probably think could have been targeting as well. I don't think he was going in intentional to spear him, so to speak. I thought he was going for the ball. I thought it was a good no call. I thought it was a terrible call to call the targeting on Miami, and that's something to
Yeah.
keep in mind heading into this national championship game because he's going to be out for the first half of this national championship game. A key defensive player. Miami's banged up. Bain gets banged up a little bit. We saw Moten go down the first play. Lofton went down. He was out the rest of the game. So a lot of
Mesidor banged up his shoulder too.
Mesidor got banged up. So this team heading into national championship is not full strength. And granted, you wouldn't expect any team to be full strength heading into the national championship game. But it's definitely something to keep an eye on defensively because this defense is what's gotten them to this point. Carson Beck stepped up when they needed it the most. I just want to get your thoughts. Where does Miami go from here heading into the national championship, you think?
I think that Miami, all they have to do is play the same brand of football they've been playing the last 3 games that they had. Miami is a team that is built through the trenches, and in an era of it doesn't matter what era of football you're in, if you have a big offensive line and a big defensive line, you can run the ball. You set the tone for the entire game. Ole Miss was a team they elected to receive the ball to start the game. They expected to come out here and just light the world on fire, and they go 3-and-out on their first 2 drives. It and everybody asks, what happens? Everybody has a plan till you get punched in the mouth, Nate. And Ole Miss didn't have a plan until they got back to halftime, were able to get some new play calls up in there, figure out what Miami was doing. And by then, Miami was already in the rhythm. They already wore down the defensive line. And Miami was just able to wear the clock out on them the second half, like you mentioned, on the time possession. But I mean, Miami matches up good with either team left in the playoffs because of how big their offensive line is. They're able to run the ball. Carson Beck, he's a top 5 quarterback in college football. They have receivers a plethora on the outside. Keelan Marion, as we mentioned, from BYU transfer, he's an elite receiver when you give him the ball. He has top end speed. Malachi Tony is an absolute demon out there. CJ Daniels, he's not a dud himself. He's from LSU. He's an elite receiver. They have plenty of receivers out there. They have big tight ends. They're able to do whatever they want. They go 3 deep at running back, and their defense is just full of talent on talent on talent. They're down there in the Florida pipeline, South Florida. They have elite high school prospects, and that's what their team's full of. And I expect them to get the job done in the national championship.
Do you think Carson Beck improved his draft stock tonight? I mean, I know it wasn't necessarily his best game, but he proved that he can step up in big moments, and he delivered down the stretch. What is your takeaway with that situation?
Well, my number one complaint when Carson Beck was at Georgia the last couple of years, my number one complaint with him is that he would never run the ball ever. And he's not an immobile quarterback. He is an athletic quarterback compared to some of these other guys, some of these pocket passers that refuse to move. And you saw towards the end of the season in these playoffs, he has been a lot more mobile, and it's helped the offense tremendously because it's able to allow the defense to focus on other things outside of just focusing on the run and focusing on the pass. They have to consider the quarterback. We saw him pull out an option in the game and keep it on an RPO. He pulled that one. I don't think anybody in the country was expecting that. And I think it gives the NFL scouts a new light to look at him in because they understand that he's growing as a quarterback. He's understanding what needs to change, and he's really improved significantly. And the biggest thing that's helping his draft stock is with NIL, nobody wants to go pro. Nobody wants to leave. And every time somebody comes back, he continues to take higher up on that board.
Yeah, you're exactly right. We're going to see what Dante Moore does after tomorrow night in the Peach Bowl, see what his decision ends up being. He might come back. I've heard from a lot of inside sources that, look, Oregon's still planning on him being their quarterback next year. I know you think he's going to the draft. I think it's a 50-50 shot. I think he could go either way. In the end, though, a couple of stats that I want to talk about from this game as well. For one, Miami's got to clean up the penalty yards. 10 penalties, 74 yards. I understand the refs kind of screwed them on some of them. Some of them were just flat out egregious, just stupid mental mistakes, both on the offensive line and on the defense. Late hits, false starts, those type of penalties. You can't play that type of football against two teams like Oregon and Indiana. They will make you pay if you're not playing clean football. And then some props to give. 11 of 19 on third down for the Miami Hurricanes. On the other side, Ole Miss 2 of 10, and Miami 2 of 2 on fourth down. So those are some big time stats in a semifinal game that you can look back on and say, yeah, that probably contributed to their win. Quick thoughts on that, Rooster.
This is something what you just mentioned is something that's going to have to that they're going to have to adjust the penalties. That is just if they end up facing Indiana, which seems like the majority of people think they're going to face in the national championship game, Indiana is not going to make those penalties. They're the most disciplined team in the entire country. And in a game against Indiana, one or two penalties can be the determining factor in the outcome of a game. A 15-yard roughing the passer could be the difference between you hoisting up the national championship trophy or you walking home as the most depressed person in the entire world. But the biggest thing for me in the national championship game that Miami is going to be facing is they're going to have to be able to come out and get 4 to 5 yards on first down and stay past the chains or however you want to word it. They need to stay in good yardages from the gate on every first down opportunity because as we watched in the Alabama game, Indiana was able to, they were in, it seemed like 2nd and 5, 3rd and 2 every single possession. And Miami's defensive line is good enough to where that's not going to happen against them every single time. Miami's defense is going to be able to make stops that other defenses will not be able to make. And it's going to come down to Miami's offense converting on third down, Carson Beck breaking a scramble, saying that they're going to have a couple opportunities where it's going to be 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, and Carson Beck's going to have to scramble. Is he going to be able to get that first down, or are they going to have to bring the punting unit out there? But, I mean, as long as I think if they fix the penalties, they're able to convert on third down. Miami is a very, very, very strong chance to win the national championship.
I couldn't agree more with you, Rooster. This offensive line is healthy. The run game is looking more dominant than ever. And we knew going into this game that Miami was going to lean heavy on that rushing attack, especially after what Georgia was able to do against Ole Miss in that first half with Nate Frazier. You had to think that they were going to have a pretty good chance of running the ball. I think Mark Fletcher ends up with 133 yards on 22 carries, which I think Miami did a great job of limiting him in carries as well. I thought that was a brilliant move on that offensive staff. I know David Pollock tweeted, why are they not running the ball more? And I tweeted back, well, listen, I think it's a matter of almost like their own pitch count for the running backs, right? When it comes to baseball, you're counting the number of pitches your pitcher pitches per game, especially later on in the World Series playoffs. You got to be able to manage those running backs because you're going to need him in this national championship game. You're going to need to lean on Mark Fletcher. You're going to need to lean on those other guys that stepped up tonight. And man, they just found a way to make a few more plays than Ole Miss, and they were able to get the job done. I have been very, very impressed with this Miami Hurricanes football team, and I am really excited to see what they can do in the national championship game. I had Ashley Friedland on yesterday. You guys can go check out that video. It's posted where we kind of talked about a preview of Miami for the Fiesta Bowl. She had all the inside info. She said that she expected the defensive line to get the Chambliss tonight. Boy, did they ever. From the very first snap, they punched that offensive line in the mouth and they never looked back. I thought they had Chambliss on ice skates all night long. And listen, we knew Chambliss was going to come up with a few plays, and he did. But ultimately, it was that defensive front that rattled that offensive line with those stunts and got to the quarterback late to really force Ole Miss in a position to play from behind. And that was the difference in this one. And give credit to the Ole Miss kicker as well. He kept them in this game. I think he finished off with what, 9 points? So, I
Yeah.
mean, he kept them in this football game too. Very exciting very exciting Fiesta Bowl semifinal game. And we're looking forward to tomorrow night's game. We will be live again tomorrow night, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time for the semifinal Peach Bowl between the Indiana Hoosiers and the Oregon Ducks. You won't want to miss out. We will be providing live in-game commentary and analysis. Rooster will be here. My other co-host, Jake, will be here. We'll have a rules expert on standby in case there's another targeting call. America's favorite uncle, Uncle Buck. Really appreciate all the support so far. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification so you can stay up to date. We post our latest content. We'll see you tomorrow night. Also, real quick, we will have a live band playing at halftime tomorrow night for the Peach Bowl. The Aromas. Shout out to the Aromas. Great rock and roll band. If you like classic rock, they're your band, and they will be performing live here on Break the Huddle After Dark at halftime tomorrow at halftime. Can't wait to see you all there. We'll see you tomorrow. Until then, it's all about the U tonight, and it's time to break the huddle.